Stairs, but we are still in Yahweh's presence. We are still in Yahweh's presence, yes, still in the house of Yah, and we should be ready. We are ready to receive what Yahweh is going to do, but we should be ready to receive His word now, today. So, as you know, we have been going through the kings of Israel, right? And we're going to do a quick recap here. Oh, thank you. A quick recap here. Right, so the first king, illegitimate king of Israel was who? Abimelech. And his name actually means my father is king, but he was evil. And who was next? Saul, yes. Good King Saul, the beginning of the first legitimate king of Israel. And then, bad King Saul. See, you can be following Yahweh, but you can turn and become bad. And then we had anointed King David. And then great King David. And then repentant King David. And then the legacy of King David. Oh boy, and we just love David. We just love David. We have to keep talking about David today. But the next one is wise King Solomon. Wise. So, war is for young men. Right? Who wants to go to war here? War is bad. But war is for young men. And you are now too old to fight. You're too old to fight. So, 2 Samuel 21:15 says, there was war again between who? The Philistines and Israel. And David, he's a warrior, he's a soldier, went down together with his servants, and they fought against the Philistines. And David grew weary. Oh, man. Lifting up spears, fighting, he's getting tired. And Ishbi-Benob, one of the descendants of the giants, whose spear weighed 300 shekels of bronze, and who was armed with a new sword, thought, you gotta kill the king. You kill the king, you will bring down this army. And then, but Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, that is David's sister, so that is his nephew, came to his aid and attacked the Philistine and killed him. Then David's men swore to him, you shall no longer go to battle with us, lest you quench the lamp of Israel. In other words, you're too old to fight, David. So David retired from military service. War is for young men. So he retired because he became too old. Like war is hard on you. But then again, got old and got cold. 1 Kings 1:1 says, now King David was old and advanced in years, and although they covered him with clothes, he could not get warm. Look, who here has worked in a nursing home or with older people? Right? They can never get warm enough. And you go into their rooms and it is hot in here. It feels like Florida. Oh, but they're comfortable. See, old people are always cold. And the reason is because when you get older, your skin loses, it's not as supple anymore. So the surface area is larger, so you lose more heat. That's the scientific way. But you get old, you get cold. So David, this tells us, David got old and he got cold. So the servant said, you know what, we're going to, although they covered him, he could not get warm. So they said, well, we are going to get a beautiful young woman to keep the king warm. And I think about this and like, who decided this? I mean, are there any other ways? But that's how they did it. But David never slept with a young lady. But that was their way. That's a strange solution, in my opinion. And so, we should take care of our elderly people. In the winter, it's especially hard for older people, and we should be mindful of our older neighbors. See, when it's snowing outside and stuff, it's good, to help older people because they have a harder time. We should, and the word says, next one, that we should respect older people. It said, you shall stand up before the gray head and honor the face of an old man, and you shall fear Yahweh, your El. Fear your El. I am Yahweh. So when you're on a bus and you see an older person, you should stand up. It's respectful, right? The gray hair. So I guess if you have no gray hair, then you just, no. It's a principle, but for older people, we got to respect older people. So the next one is David's son takes the throne again. I mean, look, this family has issues. So David now, he's older, he can't get warm, so he's just in his room, with his nurse. And so the oldest son, Adonijah, thinks, well, the king is not around, so I rightfully should be king. Because really, the oldest son should be king. So he gathered for himself, prepared for himself chariots and horsemen and 50 men to run before him, saying, I am going to be king. While David is, he's old and he's cold, so he's not engaged in political affairs. He also took Joab, right? Joab, I think the next verse. And his father had never at any time displeased him by asking, why have you done thus and so? He was also a very handsome man. I mean, David seems to produce these handsome men, Absalom was good looking, now him, Adonijah. But see, it doesn't matter how good looking you are. For you to be king, Yahweh looks at the heart. I've seen your Facebook pictures. I know how you pose, huh? We know you're good looking, but that's not enough in Yahweh's eyes. I've seen your poses. I was going to put them up here, but I don't want to, embarrass you, So it doesn't matter how good looking you are. That doesn't cut it in Yahweh's eyes. So Adonijah, just verse 7, conferred with Joab, who was David's military man and who killed Absalom. And but Zadok the priest and Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, verse 8, and Nathan the prophet and Shimei and Ray, David's men, were not with Adonijah. The curse that Yahweh placed on David after he took Bathsheba is still going on, So, but David didn't know this, that somebody, his other son had decided to take the throne. And Adonijah prepared a feast and invited everybody except Solomon. I wonder why. So, now David has sworn that Solomon would be king, not Adonijah. Adonijah, being evil and being the oldest living brother, thought, I should be king. But you see, Yahweh doesn't choose kings based on their age. And kings is based, Yahweh doesn't choose people to serve him based on their age or their looks. Yahweh looks at the heart. Solomon's heart was to obey Yahweh. That's why he was chosen king, even though he was one of the younger brothers. Yeah, so here we see that Yahweh loved Solomon, and that loved him means that, Solomon loved Yahweh, and Yahweh's response was fellowship and favor. So now we're going to talk about the next slide. The king's mother. I don't know who here has read through the Kings, right? But their mother is mentioned almost all the time. And you wonder, well, why is the mother mentioned? So the king's mother is not just like, okay, she gave birth to the king. No, she was actually advisor to the king. there's actually one king who we will look at, Yahweh willing, who, because she was evil, her son was evil too. So a king's mother is not just mother, she's advisor to the king. So some of the things she says becomes policy in the land. So, who is Solomon's mother? Bathsheba, right? So we see here Bathsheba telling David what's going on. Didn't you tell me that my son would be king? But Adonijah has now taken the throne. So you may think here that, Bathsheba is only saying this because she wants to protect her and her son's life. But Bathsheba is advisor, and Solomon, as we will see, he's just a young boy. He's just a young boy, and so the mother is very instrumental in policy and what's going on. So Bathsheba and the prophet Nathan tell David that Adonijah has set himself up to be king with Joab and next slide. So then, Solomon is anointed king. We are moving fast through here. So then, David said, no, that won't be it. Solomon is king because it's actually Yahweh who told David, you will have a son, and it's Yahweh who gave Solomon his name. So David gave instructions for Solomon to be king. There's a lot of detail. I encourage you to read 1 Kings chapter 1 and see how there's a lot of procession. So verse 38, so Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, and Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and the Kerethites and the Pelethites went down and had Solomon ride on the King David's mule. Who knows what that big car that the president of the United States drives? What do they call it again? The Beast, right? I mean, that thing is like bulletproof. If a bomb exploded underneath it, it would still survive, the Beast, the big car. No? So this is, David's king's mule. That's the royal donkey. And so they went down, and Zadok the priest took horn of oil from the tent and anointed the king. And what did they say? Long live King Solomon. Let's say that together. Long live King Solomon. One more time. Long live King Solomon. So we'll see later that does Solomon live long, and what is the condition for Solomon to live long? So Solomon was made king while David was still living. When David knew that he was about to die, there we go. Solomon being anointed as king. When David knew that he was about to die, he gave Solomon instructions about the current issues of the land. He told him about the people, his enemies, like Joab, how he murdered Abner in a time of peace. When we're at war and people die, that's what war is like. Soldiers die. But in time of peace, you don't go to the soldier who kills your family member like it's a personal thing. No, it's wartime. And in war, people die. That's why when people get killed in war, it's not called murder, because the nations are at war. There are rules, about that though. So David told Solomon to use your wisdom. But the most important thing that David said to Solomon was, let's read it together, saints, because this is important. The most important words a father could tell his child. And keep the charge of Yahweh, walking in whose ways? My ways? Your ways? Yahweh's ways. And keeping his statutes and his commandments and as it is written in the law of Moses. Now somebody you think, well, all those, his ways, his statutes, his summary, the whole word. We don't chop it up, cut it up, say, well, this only applies here unless he tells you that the whole word is good and applicable today. And what's the reason for saying this? Next verse, please. That Yahweh may establish his word that he spoke concerning me, saying, if your sons pay close attention to their way, to walk before me in what? Faithfulness. With how much of their heart? All their heart. So you see, Yahweh promised David that your sons would be on the throne, but still, your sons must follow me. See, just because your father or your mother is righteous doesn't mean you get a pass. It has to be your own faith. Your own faith. With all their heart, with all their soul, you shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel. And if we read through, there was a time when we came really, really close to losing one of David's descendants. Really, really close. Like he was only the one person left. But we see how Yahweh preserves his promise. All right. And then King David died. We love David, but he died. And King David, and then David slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. And you can go to King David's tomb on Mount Zion. But really, it's the supposed burial site. And the tomb is empty. There's nothing in there. So it's just a memorial, I guess, But it's one of the holiest Jewish sites. That's what they say. I don't know if it's there. But, Yahweh is the God of the living. So it doesn't matter where you're buried. It matters that you resurrect. Are we still there? I know it's summertime. Are we awake? Are we still, Are we awake? Should I ask you guys to stand up and walk around in circles? Okay, let's move on. Then King Solomon was anointed king again, the second time. 1 Chronicles 29 and verse 22. And they made Solomon, the son of David, king the second time. And they anointed him as prince for who? For Yahweh. So anybody who stands in a seat of position in the church, it's not for your people. These people are not my people. They're not Pastor Michael's people. They're Yahweh's people. So when you stand before here, whether you're singing a song, saying a testimony, you charge over Yahweh's people. So you got to be careful, right? And Zadok as priest, that is, high priest. Then Solomon sat on the throne of Yahweh. On the throne of Yahweh. Whose church is this? It's Yahweh's church, right? We got too many pastors thinking it's my church. I'm going to make my rules. I'm going to do the thing the way I want it done. It's not your church. These are not your people. You have been given charge to take care of them for a little while. And at the end, Yahshua is going to ask, well, how did you do it? See, there are records in heaven right now. In Revelation, we're taught, and the books were opened, and we're going to be judged the things we've done. There are books right now. So you want good things written about in those books. So it says, then Solomon sat on the throne of Yahweh as king in place of David his father. And he prospered, and all Israel obeyed him. All the leaders and the mighty men, and also all the sons of King David pledged their allegiance to King Solomon. And by the way, Solomon, killed his brother Adonijah because he was, trying to get the throne. And Joab too. And Yahweh made Solomon very great in the sight of all Israel, and bestowed on him such royal majesty as had not been seen on any king before him in Israel. And the majesty of King Solomon was really unparalleled. And if I may say that there was no king before him who had such royal majesty, and even after him. This At this time, the nation had now entered into its golden age. In Solomon's time, Israel was at its highest in power, in wealth, and I would even say in righteousness, because David left it in such a good state. This is the same majesty that Yahshua spoke about when he said, "Why are you anxious about your clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon, in all his glory, was not arrayed like one of these." It is during Solomon's era that wealth became just so abundant. It was insane. Solomon is a type of Messiah because in many ways, because of the glory that Yahweh placed on Solomon, it is a glimpse of the glory that Yahshua will have when he comes to reign. Yahshua himself speaking, what did he say? One greater than Solomon is here. Now, Solomon was not the most righteous king, but David left the nation in such a very good state. Yahweh gave Solomon peace as he had promised. And then we move on to the wise king. Now, last time we talked about King David's legacy, how he instructed his son Solomon to build the temple of Yahweh. But Solomon was young and inexperienced. This is a huge temple you have to build with a lot of people. David took great pains to make them as much preparation so that his son would not fail. Solomon has a huge task, but Solomon, he's just a boy. He's probably like 10, 12, maybe a teenager. He's just a boy. So how does the boy build a temple, huh? How does my heir build a temple? My heir, if we gave you plans to say, you know what, this church, it's nice, but it's old. So here are the plans. And we'll give you the money and, just go ahead and build us just build a really nice church for Yahweh. So how does a boy build a temple? Solomon loved Yahweh. So whenever we see the word say that someone loved Yahweh, it means he obeyed Yahweh's instructions. So 1 Kings 3 says, Solomon loved Yahweh, walking in the statutes of who? David, his father. Only he sacrificed and made offerings at the high places. And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. Solomon used to offer 1,000 burnt offerings. 1,000. That's, man, 1,000. I don't know what the animal rights people would think about that today. Just see 1,000 sheep. At Gibeon, Yahweh appeared to Solomon in a dream by night and asked, "What shall I give you?" Let me just ask, if Yahweh came to you in a dream tonight, ask you, what should I give you? What would you say? Health? I think that's nice to ask. A car? Huh? Money, right? Give me some money. Seriously, what would you say if Yahweh says, "What shall I give you?" And Solomon said, "You have shown great and steadfast love to your servant David, my father, because he walked before you in what? Faithfulness, in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart toward you. And you have kept for him this great and steadfast love and have given him a son to sit on this throne this day. And now, O Yahweh, my El, you have made your servant king in place of David, my father, although I am but a little child. I do not know how to go out or come. So I don't know how to run this nation. I don't know how to be king." Solomon acknowledges that he's just a young child and he doesn't know how to run a nation or build a temple. "And your servant is in the midst of your people," verse 8, "whom you have chosen, a great people, too many to be numbered or counted for multitude." So how does somebody who's young like that run a nation or build a temple? So what does he say? Verse 9, "Give your servant therefore an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between what? Good and evil. For who is able to govern this great people? I mean, look, if for a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, that is a brilliant question. I mean, that is a great ask. So you wonder how, because it seems that Solomon is already a little bit wise beyond his years. Because it's like he has some wisdom to ask this wise thing. So how is it possible that Solomon, still being young, would ask such a brilliant question, right? So maybe Proverbs chapter 4 would tell us. The Proverbs were written by Solomon, right? Right? Are we still awake? So this is Solomon speaking, saying, when I was my father's son, tender and the only one in the sight of who? My mother, he also taught me and said to me, let your heart retain my words. Keep my commandments alive. So these are the words of David to Solomon. And what does he say in verse 5? Get wisdom. Get understanding. Do not forget nor turn away from the words of my mouth. So David planted in Solomon the idea that, look, whatever you do, get wisdom. She, that is wisdom, shall give to thine head an ornament of grace, a crown of glory shall she deliver to thee. So perhaps that's why Solomon, because he could have asked for power, military power, or for his enemies' lives. And so Yahweh, seeing that, it pleased Yahweh that is a great ask. So Yahweh gave Solomon what he asked for. Solomon didn't even ask for long life. So Yahweh said, because you have asked this and have not asked yourself long life or riches or the life of your, and have asked for yourself understanding to discern what is right, behold, I now do according to your word. Behold, I give you a wise and discerning mind, so that none like you has seen before you, and none like you shall rise after you. Boom, just like that. There's no 4-year college degree. You don't have to you don't have to take 18 years to get your computer science degree. There's no master's degree. Just like that. You got it. Wow, just like that. Boom. But as a bonus, because your question is such a good question, as a bonus, verse 13, I give you also what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that no other king shall compare with you all your days. I don't know if there was any king that began his reign so magnificently. Yahweh was so pleased with his ask. But then, do you remember what we talked about Solomon's long life, right? So Yahweh says, verse 14, and if you walk in my ways, doing what? Keeping my statutes and as your father David walked, then I will lengthen your days. See, I'll bless you with this now. But see, if you become a wicked king and you have a long life, we don't want long wickedness in the nation, because that means, the nation becomes really, really bad. So if you continue following me, Solomon, I will lengthen your days. You will die an old man, maybe in your 70s like your father, maybe even older. When we do the math, that never really happened. Yahweh gives Solomon wisdom like no other king during his time, and I would say like no other king after him. So we look at now Solomon's wisdom and fame. So one day, this story, 2 prostitutes come to Solomon claiming to be the mother of one child, right? And I'm going to just read it here. So the one woman says, I'm paraphrasing here, that the 2 women, they live alone. They are prostitutes, and they both got pregnant at the same time. They also each gave birth to a son within 3 days of each other. So we have 2 women living together, and they both have children. And they both slept with their children beside them. Then the lady said that her friend rolled over and killed her baby. But in the night, while her friend was sleeping, she switched the babies. She took her dead baby and put it alongside her friend who had the living baby and put her friend's baby by her side. Then the lady said, when I woke up to breastfeed my son, he was dead. And then I took a closer look at him and I said, that's not my child. So 1 Kings 3 and verse 22 says, but the other woman said, no, the living child is mine, but the dead child is yours. But the first said, no, the dead child is yours and the living child is mine. So this is, she said. Now, this is a very difficult problem. There's no DNA here. I can just, okay, we'll take the DNA of the child and we see if half of it matches yours. There's no DNA. Well, what about if it looks like the father? They're prostitutes. That's their business. I mean, which of all these men got them pregnant? You cannot. So Solomon considers the situation. What do you do here? I mean, seriously, like what do you do? So, the king says, just bring out a sword. Because this is she said, and I don't know what's going on. So bring a sword, and we're going to just cut the baby in half, give one half to the one woman, and the other half to another woman. But the first woman says, no, please don't kill the child. Just give her the child. Then Solomon said, that's the mother. Because a mother would rather let her child be raised by another woman than to see her child die. The wise king judged correctly. And when Solomon judged that, his fame just spread because it was like, oh my goodness. How, this is wisdom that is not found anywhere. And his fame just spread all over, But we do see this, right? Because you guys see how I'm reacting, but it was the same reaction, right? When Yahshua said at the Sermon on the Mount, after he has finished speaking, they said, we have never heard any of the scribes speak like this, right? So we do see there's similarity, but it's more than that. So Solomon's fame just spreads all over because this is unheard of. So Solomon, the son of David, established himself in his kingdom, and Yahweh, his Elohim, was with him and made him exceedingly great. Judah and Israel were as many as the sand by the sea. There were many. They ate and drank and were happy. Look, it was a nice time. It was a happy time. Solomon ruled over the kingdoms from the Euphrates. That is way beyond. That is the land that Yahweh had promised them. To the border of Egypt. They brought tribute and served Solomon all the days of his life. So this is like the pinnacle, the highest point of what Israel should be. And the king made silver and gold as common in Jerusalem as stone. I mean, think about that. Like gold is just, there's just so much money. It's like, you know what? I could just, throw it away and so what? And he made cedar as plentiful as the sycamore of Shephelah. Gold is everywhere. The golden age of the nation had arrived. Solomon also built the temple, and it was glorious. Because he said this prayer, and Yahweh just heard him and came down in a rush, and there was a cloud in the temple, and the priest had to move out because the glory of Yahweh had come in. Solomon was just like, people came from everywhere to hear the wisdom of Solomon. Everywhere. The temple, built of gold, must have just glistened in the sun. This is what Yahweh wanted the nation to be like all the time. Because with this fame, then they serve Yahweh. People will come and say, well, you know what? Let us serve your God too. Let us serve Yahweh too. 1 Kings 4:29 says, and Yahweh, and Elohim gave Solomon wisdom and understanding beyond measure and breadth of mind like the sand of... the man he had a mind like no one else. so that Solomon's wisdom surpassed the wisdom of all the people of the East and all the wisdom of Egypt. The people of the East were known as wise men. If you read the book of Job, you're like, how do these people know these things? These were very wise men, and I believe that's where the wise men who came to Yahshua's, to his home, came from there. They were known as the very, wise men. I think this is in Job where they ask something like, maybe it's Yahweh talking about like lightnings passing through and them coming to say to you, here we are. And if you really look at that is sound waves, that you can actually send sound through electromagnetic waves. And that is like way beyond, science until some 3,000 years later. So the wisdom there was just great, but Solomon surpassed their wisdom. Verse 32, we'll move down. He also spoke how many proverbs? 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. So that song of Solomon is like the greatest song that Solomon ever wrote. The man wrote songs that probably just made you weep. Songs that made you, think of the past and just wonder. But that was the great wisdom that Yahweh gave him. And that's why many people, right, we see that many people flocked to hear Solomon speak, but also who flocked to hear who speak? Many people flocked to hear Yahshua speak, right? So we see the same wisdom. He spoke of trees, from the cedar that is in Lebanon to the hyssop that grows out of the wall. He also spoke of beasts and of birds and of reptiles, or that's creeping things. I'm not sure if the reptiles is a good translation. And fish. So this man was a botanist, a scientist, a philosopher. If Solomon was like, okay, what anyone could really be, he reached that really, he had knowledge about all, about animals. And the man never went to college. And people from all nations came to hear the wisdom. And from all the kings of the earth who had heard of his wisdom. So we really do see here how Yahweh is truly the all-knowing Elohim. Because there is no Elohim anywhere, any God who just gives knowledge like that. Just boom, there it is. So we need to read the Proverbs, saints. Young people, save yourselves and read and do the Proverbs. It will make your life a lot easier, I'm telling you. Older people, read the Proverbs and walk in righteousness. So before we come to an end here, let us read some of the Proverbs. So the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. This is the very first verse. For example, the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. See, when you have credit cards or bills, debt, you know that you can't be like the good Samaritan, because you have all this money that you have to pay to other people. Being in debt is not good. You gotta get bill collectors calling you. I'm starting to see faces here because, we got debt. We're Americans, huh? But we got to get out of debt. The borrower is slave to the lender. You're pretty much walking on their step. So we got too many credit cards is not good, or whatever debt you have, you got to pay it off. My wife and I are going through our Dave Ramsey's, Total Money Makeover, paying down all this debt. So we want to be free. If the saints are in too much debt, we cannot be a blessing to one another, because that is Yahweh's money. We should take care of it. The next one. A fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back. Nobody needs to hear your mind. Okay? Nobody needs to hear your mind. Not all the time. Sometimes it's good to just be, quiet. Nobody needs to hear a piece of your mind, not all the time. You know, sometimes it's good to just be quiet. Next one. For the lips of the forbidden, that is immoral woman, drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil. But in the end, she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Oh, man. Oh, she talks nice. You know? She's real nice. You know how she just, her skits just get me. Oh, you're going to be got in a bad way. You got to be careful. There's some femme fatales out there. And guys, too. Bad chicks. Bad dudes. Young people. I'm telling you. There's some bad, crazy people out there. And even us older people, you know, we gotta be careful. The next one. It is better to live in a corner of the housetop than in a house shared with a quarrelsome wife. Look, when, you know, the attic just is so peaceful and it's nice. It's, you know, as a man, it's peaceful there. You know, quarreling. I think that's probably why the whole man cave thing came up about. It's like, yo, look, I gotta get away sometime. So, sisters, you know, we gotta watch our mouths. Sometimes we say things in the moment, and it's hard to take things back. Now, this applies to men too, but there's a study that I think women like say more words per day than men. You know. I mean, and sometimes when I think why it's hard for men, you know, to combat women in words, because it's like when women talk, it's like a machine gun, you know. When guys talk, it's a shotgun, you know. So like by the time you cock it, you know, she's already said like 30 words, you know, and then I'm processing what she said, but then so I cock again, but then she already said more. So like, look. I'm going to the rooftop. I can't stand this. Okay? So there's more peace up there. So the sisters, you know, we read the Proverbs and also, you know, the husbands of the men, we don't, you know, get to a point where our wife has to do this. Right? So it's more peaceful there than, you know, because you can't go to a machine gun battle with a shotgun. You can't. The next one. Oh, wine is a mocker. Strong drink is a brawler, and whoever is led astray by it is not wise. Look, it is, if you have had trouble with alcohol, with wine, it's just better to put it down. It's better to just put it down. I'm telling you the truth that it is better to enter, you know, to enter heaven, having never tasted wine, than to go into hellfire because wine causes you to fall away from Yahweh. Right? If the saints have talked to you about this over and over again, like just put it down. And if you find that you really can't, you know, we need help. You know, need help. Next one. Whoever blesses his neighbor with a loud voice rising early in the morning will be counted as cursing. Look, I know you're a nice guy, and I love how you say good morning, but sometimes it's too early. It's too early, and I'm not quite awake yet. So this is just being about, you know, being a good neighbor, you know, and understanding that, you know, there's a time, you know, it's nice to say good morning and, you know, Yahweh bless you, but we must be mindful. So the Proverbs will tell you how to be a good neighbor, a good employee, how to work hard, how to manage your money. So please, I really encourage you to read the Proverbs and do them. And the last one, many man proclaims his own steadfast love, but a faithful man who can find? A steadfast love, his kindness. You know, he'll be, oh, hey, baby, you know, I'm going to be there for you, and I'll do this and this for you. But only a faithful man who can find. And really here, what it's saying is that if a man is faithful to Yahweh, he'll be faithful to you. So you want a man who is faithful to Yahweh. Because many men proclaim this. I heard this one saying one time. This wife was telling her husband, you always say you would die for me, but you never do. See, you proclaim your steadfast love, but so a faithful man, if he's faithful to Yahweh, he'll be faithful to you. In closing, these are some of the proverbs that King Solomon spoke. Now, I see people, you're laughing, so I can imagine people just, listening to Solomon, just laughing and saying, wow, that is such a good, saying. And they took it to their land, and, so it was just a great, wonderful time. So it says here, and all Israel heard of the judgment that the king had rendered, and they stood in awe of the king, because they perceived that who? The what? The wisdom of Elohim was in him to do justice. And what does 1 Corinthians 1:24 say? But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Messiah, the power of Elohim, and the wisdom of? So the wisdom of Elohim is Yahshua. The one who spoke those words to Solomon was Yahshua. And that's why he said, one greater than Solomon is here. Yahweh bless you.